Here we go. In this video, I'm going to show you the very first jazz blues solo that you need to learn that is going to expand your understanding of the jazz blues and add some depth and sophistication to the ideas that you play in your solos. I promise that if you stay till the end of the video, you'll have a better understanding of how to go beyond the blues scale and minor pentatonic, and more than that, you'll actually have some great licks to back it up in your playing. So the very first jazz blues solo that I'm suggesting you learn is a Grant Green solo from his tune Blues for Willarene, and this comes from the Blue Note album from 1961 called Grant's First Stand. It's an organ trio, and in this solo he plays 10 choruses of dirty blues riffs and pentatonic ideas, as well as some sophisticated jazz ideas. This song is a pretty standard B-flat blues with the jazz element of having a 2-5-1 on that last set of 4 measures. So we're dealing with a lot of B-flat 7, E-flat 7, and then we have C minor, F7 to resolve back to B-flat on the last set of 4 bars. So today I'm going to teach you the 10 best ideas in this solo and how to work them into your own playing. I'll show you exactly what he does, but more importantly, I'm going to show you why it works and how to make it your own. So the first idea I want to take a look at is this line that he plays connecting a B-flat 7 to E-flat 7. And the idea here is that it's an enclosure. We're targeting the B-flat note over B-flat 7. What he plays is all of that just leads you to the B-flat. Right there. That's the resolution. So we have this 3-note enclosure. And then from there, we do a 2-note enclosure to G. And why do we go to G? Because that's the third of E-flat 7. So this is that part where we go B-flat 7 down to E-flat 7. And we have and then we have this nice jump up of a 6th, and that finishes the idea. One of the things I want to point out here is that the way we go from just a blues and minor pentatonic understanding in our solos is starting to address the chord tones, meaning we focus on and target playing these chord tones on downbeats. I talked about it on the channel a lot, but it's still worth repeating. And that's this element that gives it this jazz bebop type of sound. So that's what we're focusing on. That's what we want to incorporate into our playing if we want to get beyond blues. I'm also going to show you some cool blues licks that Grant Green does here as well. The second idea, this is an idea that comes on that C minor 7 to F7. And this is interesting because he uses C melodic minor, meaning over the C minor, the ideas have the C minor, but with a B natural. And that B natural really acts as a leading tone. It really drives our attention to that root note C. This is the idea he plays there. So the C melodic minor scale is C, D, E flat, F, G, A, B, and C. You can think about it like C major scale, just with the flat third. So C, D, E flat. All the other notes don't have accidentals. Within this line, we have a few interesting patterns. We have this idea of targeting and then scale-like patterns, where he's really just walking up the scale. Now, when we walk up the scale, a lot of times the way an intermediate player might approach this is usually starting on the root, which doesn't sound usually nearly as good as starting on really any of the other notes within that scale. And so here he's starting on that B natural all the way up to G. And again, here we have a nice common pattern of 5-3-2-1, 4-3-2-1. This whole section from C minor to F7, he's really treating like it's still C minor. And the reason we know that is because he's not really hitting that A natural, which characterizes the change to F7. Ending with a little melodic idea of over B flat. Something I want to point out here is the repetition of ideas within the solo, the same solo. So I said it was 10 choruses. The first example I just gave you for this C minor is from the first chorus. And now we're going to look at something he plays in chorus number 7 over the same part, same C minor to F7. And look how similar it is in the shape of it and the way he finishes the idea, the type of scales he's using. So let me play it for you first. A lot of similarities here. He's still making use of this C melodic minor for both of those chords. The one difference is that he likes playing this as a G major triad this time, which is something you can do over C melodic minor. And then he does the same kind of walk up, starting on B natural, all the way up to G. So that B natural up to G is one of these preferred paths for the C melodic minor scale that Grant Green likes to use. Coming back down, and then almost the same exact ending. Before he went, so it's just without the double hit of the F at the end, but almost the same type of idea. I point this out just so that you realize a lot of these great jazz guitarists, a lot of these heroes, they're reusing material and ideas that they've developed. So learning these kind of vocab and licks is a good idea. You just really want to integrate it into your own playing, make it your own, and then reuse it. Use it in different ways. Try and adjust it and come back to it within the same solo. In this example, we're going to look at some of the ways we are targeting notes on these chord changes using some different ideas like 3-note enclosures and some pivot arpeggios and regular types of arpeggios. Again, the main thing I want to drive home here is that in this solo, you really learn how to target the notes and the chord tones of the harmony on the blues. And that's the big difference that takes you from just a blues player to a jazz blues player with your vocabulary. So in this example, notice how the lines lead to certain chord tones. That's what we're going to focus on. Let me play the line for you. Let's break down the first part. So all of the idea in the first part is to get us to the third of F7, the A natural. Watch. We're just targeting this A natural with a 3-note enclosure. Okay, now we're here on this F7. Now what are we going to do? We're going to go up this 7 flat 9 arpeggios, kind of like an A diminished arpeggio. He breaks it up with a little 8th note, but it's that arpeggio to lead us to F, which is the root of F7. So we targeted the third, we targeted the root. Now this next part is to get us to the third of B flat 7, which is coming up, which is D. And then we have A natural on B flat 7. Sounds really weird, but it's really strong to get us back to the root. And that's our resolution. So the whole line, third of F7, root of F7. Now we're going to the third of B flat 7. And then the root. So for both the F7 and for the B flat 7, we target the third and the root at some point. This is another thing to point out as far as the difference between jazz playing and blues playing is a lot of times the notes we play on the chord, it's less about what's getting played at that moment and more about where we're going to land in the next measure. That can be something that's really tricky for people to work on early on in their development for jazz playing. It's almost like reading ahead. Same thing with sight reading. We're focused on what's coming next, not about what we're playing right now. One of the other things that jazz musicians like to do a lot of is play substitute arpeggio, substitute chords than what's actually being played or written on the page. And the way we do this is for the chord change, there's certain standard substitutions that you can use that will sound good pretty much all the time. And that's what Grant Green does in this idea. Okay, so in the second measure of this, it says E flat 7, but Grant Green is treating this as if it's a 2-5 back to B flat 7. He's treating it like it's C minor and F7. And the way we know that is the idea he's playing, the arpeggios he's using, spells out the harmony that he's thinking of or hearing. And so that is C minor 7 first. All of those notes are C minor 7. From there, he goes to F7. That same A diminished arpeggio we looked at before. And then that leads to that F. In this context, that F is not the root of F. It's the fifth of B flat 7. So he doesn't even treat it like E flat 7. He says, you know what? I'm going to put my own 2-5 on this. And then at measure 4 on this same idea, he's not playing over B flat 7 arpeggio. He's using an A flat major 7 arpeggio. And I like thinking about this as just a whole step down from whatever the dominant chord is. There's a few ways you can think about it. This is one way I like to think about it. So instead of playing like a B flat 7 arpeggio like you guys might be doing over B flat 7, he's playing an A flat major 7 arpeggio. And then just like a little bluesy idea at the end, blues pentatonic, B flat minor pentatonic. So those are some substitute arpeggios you can use on these dominant chords. Okay, finally with example 6, we get into some dirty blues ideas. And this is one he repeats for half a chorus, almost an entire chorus. And it's a nice little slide bluesy idea over B flat blues scale. It sounds like this. It's just repeated and it starts on the upbeat. So it sounds like this. So using this idea over and over again really builds up the tension. And then right at the end of that chorus, he ends with a very classic little opening phrase for a blues. But it gives him a second, gives him a break from all this jazz stuff he's been playing, and brings back in that blues element. So you don't want to forget the blues stuff that you know and that you can do just because you're learning and adding in some jazz stuff. That's the lesson here with example 6. This next one is one of my favorite kinds of ideas, especially as a guitarist. We hear this a lot, and if you don't know how to do this, this one's really worth knowing because it's such common jazz guitar vocabulary. I think about it as like a legato chromaticism, and I'll play it for you in a second. This one is over that E flat 7 going to B flat 7. Okay, what's going on here? We have this like legato slur type of idea going into the root of E flat 7, the E flat. You can use all 4 fingers or you can slide that last one. It really depends on what you're coming from before. And then we come back down the same way we went. We don't go fully chromatic, so we're not going to hit B natural, but we go to B flat until we get to A flat, and that's our chord tone for B flat 7. That's our 7th of B flat 7. So again, we're targeting a different chord tone for B flat 7. That's what makes all of these jazz lines work. Again, this one is really, really critical. The way I think about it is off of this shape for E flat 7. Same starting note. We start on the 6th or the 13th. And then we're there for that B flat 7. So add that one into your playing. If you guys want to get the PDF for this as well as a lot more courses and lessons from me, just check out Chaser's Guitar Academy in the link in the description below. You get a 7-day free trial. Okay, so a few more ideas left, and I saved some of the more interesting ones for the end here, so stick around for a little bit longer. This one is what seems like a standard sort of 2-5 idea. This is over the G7 leading in a C minor. Very, very simple, standard thing. You think you know where it's going, and then Grant Green tricks you. He throws in a resolution there that is not where you expect. And this is one of the things that you want to be doing once you set up certain expectations. Just like the same way a good novelist has you thinking that the story's going in one direction and then changes your expectation. So what's going on here? So we have a G7, and then he plays this standard idea, again, this diminished type of arpeggio, playing through that. You can think about it like altered type of scale, a melodic minor, or just it's based around that diminished. Where do we want that to go? We want that to go to E flat. That's like the resolution we expect. And Grant Green goes to G flat over C minor. So and then he holds it. It's not like a mistake. He holds it for a half note. That really is a tension that really takes us out of what we were expecting. And it still works because of the way that the last couple of notes work. He's playing G and F, which is a little 2-note chromatic enclosure for G flat. G, F, G flat. So it's, and then he goes from there. So he ends up playing basically like a C blues idea. But right there, woo, you're right back into paying attention to what he's doing. Example 9, this is another way you can target notes without specifically going up from a chromaticism, either ascending or descending. And this is this idea of using a pedal note as our in-between note for targeting. I'll show you what I mean. So the line sounds like this. So this is the C minor 7 going to F7, and the important notes to target here on the F7 are the 3rd and the 7th. First, with this idea, we get to the 3rd of F7, that A. And the pedal note, the note we keep bouncing to, is the G. So it's C to G, B flat to G, A to G. Instead of just going C, B flat to A, or a previous enclosure we did, he keeps bouncing. So that's another way you can target certain notes. From there, we do have a chromaticism down to the 7th, the E flat, and then back to the 3rd. So our final idea is super simple, but I pointed it out because it reminded me of another very famous solo. Let's see if you know what solo I'm talking about. I'll play the line first before I say anything else. Here's one more hint. So what I want to do after hearing that is this. Do you know what it is? If you know what it is, comment below. So that is an idea that George Benson plays in his solo on Billy's Balance, a really famous solo you probably know from the album Giblet Gravy. He plays it as a blues in F, so his version sounds like, same exact rhythm, same kind of idea of just playing over these major triads, but Benson adds this little at the end that Grant Green doesn't. Now that's 7 years later. That's in 1968 with Benson, and this is 1961 with Grant Green. So I just wanted to throw that one in. If you guys are interested in that George Benson solo, make sure you check out the video I did and maybe refresh it if you've already seen it. I did it about a year or two ago. You can check that out here, and I break down a bunch of blues ideas for blues in F, and this is one of the best jazz blues solos by far. Everyone agrees on that. Worth checking out. Thanks for tuning in.